All right, are we ready to begin? All right. Hello and good evening. We have just returned from executive session in which we discussed matters covered under Exception 3 of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law to discuss issues related to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. The discussions pertain to the Medfield Teachers Association, Units A and B, and the AFL-CIO custodians, cafeteria workers, and secretaries units. I will now call this meeting to order. It is January 7th, 2021, and this is the regular session of the Medfield School Committee. And I will begin with a roll call. We are remote this evening. So, Leo Bram. Leo, roll call.
Here.
Thank you. Tim Knight.
Here.
Megan Glenn.
Here.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Here.
And Jessica Riley. I am here. I think that the first thing I would like to just say tonight is that there really are no actual good explanations or words for the many things that have happened to us over the last year. And this is the first meeting of 2021. And the events in the Capitol yesterday are really just another thing that we will remember when we are older, and perhaps, I hope not, but our children will remember where they were when they found out that it was possible for our Capitol to be stormed and for the legislative process and the things that we have held so dear to be disrupted in that way. And like I said, there are really no adequate words. There are other things that have happened to us over this year, but what I would ask is that we do our best to demonstrate something different when we meet together, when we talk to each other on social media, when we talk to our kids, when we help them understand this time, this extraordinary time that I hope will never repeat, but I hope that we can do that together as a community. So I just felt like it was important to acknowledge that, because it has been a year that I'm certain most of you have never thought that there were things that would happen this year that have. So, all right. So, we are going to go to public input now. Citizens at this time may address the committee on items of school business that are not on the agenda for this evening. The committee will take such items under advisement without action or discussion at this time at the meeting at which the item is presented. To indicate that you would like to make a comment on an item not currently on the agenda, please click the raise hand icon on your screen. When you are brought over, announce your name and address. You'll be given up to 3 minutes to make your statement. And in order to further the efficient process of the district and committee's business meeting, we will hear public comment under this agenda item for up to 15 minutes. All right, so if we could watch to see, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to see if anybody would like to comment or make a public comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda. I'll give you about another 30 seconds or so. All right, going once, going twice. And does anybody else see anyone? No? Okay. Then what we will move on to now is the approval of minutes. We have minutes for the regular meeting of October 10th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Sorry. It's October 8th, and it noted that I was there, and I was definitely not there as it was my 50th.
Oh, well, then let us hold those because I am not quite sure what happened there. I'm sorry. I read them, but
Or we can approve as long as that is.
no.
Approved
I
as
think-
amended.
Yeah, as amended.
Well, I would feel better if we went back and looked at it. If there are those two glaring errors, then I would prefer that we go back. I looked over them. So let us hold those, okay? The rest of the committee feel like that would be appropriate? I do feel like it's a-
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you. Okay, now, so we will postpone that approval. And now we're going to vote on the approval and release of the amended executive session minutes from March 11th, 2019, April 1st, 2019, and June 3rd, 2019. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Leo. Do I, anyone?
Second, Anna Mae.
Okay, Anna Mae, second. I'm going to do a roll call vote now for Leo Brem,
Aye.
Tim Knight,
Aye.
Megan Glenn,
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke,
Aye.
Jessica Riley, aye, and the motion passes. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we will move on to the fiscal year 21 budget update, as well as the update on the school learning model progress. As I've done, or as we've done for the last few times that we have done this, we will take public comment at the end of both of these. So we will treat them as one, and you can go back and comment on either the budget update or the school learning progress. So, and there will be no vote taken on either one of these tonight. So if there are things that you feel like you would to comment on and you're unable or would not want to come over but would like to write to the committee, we're certainly willing to take that input as well. Okay. So with that, shall I hand it over to Dr. Marsden for the budget update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Michael LaFrancesca is going to share his screen and give you an update on the FY21 budget and where we are in terms of, as you know, we've had some discussions with the Warrant Committee and Board of Selectmen around potential deficits for FY21. So Michael will go over some of those numbers up to date and where we are with our CARES Act and other grant money. Michael?
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so we did the update for this month. So this is the summary sheet between budget versus actual for the months of July through December. So we break it down again, same format, personnel, non-personnel. On the personnel side, we break it down into the DESE guidelines, which is instructional services, student services, operations, and administration. And as you can see that we are at currently slightly over budget. As you can see, the projection right now is 11,124,317. That's actually the actual compared to our budget, which is 30 million. We actually have spent 37% of our budget, and usually in the past is approximately 27%. But if you look at the non-personnel side, we are under projected budget, which is 33%, where we should be at 50%. That being said, our student special educational transportation cost, like we said, we prepaid. And then our regular transportation cost, we did negotiate a reduction due to the Wednesdays, and that could change, but that's where you're going to see some savings. And our utilities currently, for the months of July through December have been on target, but we are expecting those to be above moving forward. So if I go to my next spreadsheet, which is our monthly projection, At the top, we talk about the CARES Act, which is the 102 grant, which is the $225 per student that we received from the federal government for the COVID relief. As you can see, we received $565,425. That has been all expended as of December 30th. And the categories that we spent those COVID expenses was nurses and custodians. Those are the additional nurses and custodians for about $48,000. We had reopening stipends that came to $65,750. For PPE, gloves, $748. Hand sanitizer, $74,000. Disinfectant wipes, $69,000. Masks, $7,400. Cleaning supplies, that's the extra cleaning supplies for COVID. That came in at about $19,000. Filters, those are the HVAC heavy duty MAR 13 filters, and we're about at $40,500. Excuse me, that's 19,000. The HVAC cost is $67,891. That was at the beginning of the year. We also, in that number is the air purifiers that we purchased for the Wheelock School and the Dale Street School. IT cost, additional IT costs for COVID expenses of $104,000. Special ed assessments and translation, $6,200, and then other is $55,000. That other is desk dividers and materials like that. And then the CARES Act, which is the $1.1 million that the town got as of December 30th, we received $715,309. This is where we transferred over $239,000 in additional expenses due to teachers and TAs that that happened due to COVID-19. As you recall, is about 21.1 FTEs, additional FTEs to help us with our COVID expenses as of right now. So we moved the 239,000, 177, which is almost 178,000 was in additional teachers, and then 62,000 is in teaching assistants. We also spent in PPE 426,000 in gloves, in hand sanitizer about 57,000, disinfectant wipes about $2,000, in masks, $18,000 in mask out of this grant, cleaning supplies another 21,000, food service supplies 20,000, and then other cost is about $355,000. Now, all that is broken down in the backup information. So if you want to see where the dollars are broken down by line item, we have different tabs. The personnel tab, which accounts for about 200 and something line items. The non-personnel, the grant 102. This is where we do our audit. So these numbers here, this is internal audit because we have to do an internal audit in order to submit to the state, and then the state does their own audit. And then the possibility there could be a federal audit on these expenses. But these are all the items that we purchased in the 102 grant, which matches our summary sheet, which is 445,000. And then this is the CARES Act line items, line by line, which is an additional 475,000. And then we had the payroll, which adds up to the total cost. The only other thing I would add, the superintendent was in the meeting with the commissioner today, that there will be additional funding coming shortly, but not nearly close to the amounts that we have received so far.
So Michael, so I mean, just when you look at the CARES Act and the other grants, so the 1.2, like, until we have that funding, that would be otherwise coming out of
Yeah,
the first sheet.
Yeah, so if you look at the bottom of the monthly projection cost, I projected out that for COVID-related expenses from January through June, approximately an additional $657,000. If you recall, last month that was about 1.2 million, but because we were allowed to transfer our personnel cost into the CARES Act, that reduced the amount that we would be carrying forward from now till June. So, you know, my best projection is we're probably going to be approximately $657,000 over budget, which is better than where we were a month ago, which was 1.2 million, if I'm not mistaken. And that was, again, because we were allowed to move personnel costs into the CARES Act.
Madam Chair, to Michael's point, we had the meeting with the commissioner this afternoon, and he did confirm for us that the mechanism that's going to be used for the new federal stimulus money is Title I. So that unfortunately does not bode well for us in terms of what we're going to get. We were hoping it was going to be a per student allocation, but it's not. So it is going to be a larger amount than last time. They're looking at a factor of 3.7 or 3.8 over what we got last time, but it's still not even close to what we need and what other places are going to get, because it's based on that Title I formula.
So that last time was 225 per student? Was that what they, no, this is what
No,
what
so-
last time are we talking about? There's so many last times.
So Jess, the last time we received Title I, which is the Title I funding, which came from, it was $52,000.
Right.
So it would be
right.
greater than the $52,000, but less than the $560,000 that we received.
Yeah, we
Right.
think it's going to be around 190,000.
Jeff, could you explain for our viewing audience what the mechanism of Title I is and how that affects us? Just to clarify.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that many communities similar to Medfield don't get a lot of Title I money based on the demographics. And a lot of that is based on income and your free reduced lunch number, which ours is extremely low. So that's what the federal government has used forever in terms of their funding of both federal grants and other money. So I think we're disappointed. We're hoping that's not how they're going to do it. But I think the state made that decision. I think the federal money, I think they've allocated, I think it was 851 million to the state of Massachusetts. They got their number last night, they told us. And I think it's probably what they view. I think the feds probably said you have to disperse it this way. And that's what they're going to do. So we're going to get the application. It's going to be a grant application. We're supposed to get that next week. And that will give us what our allocation is. But based on what their projection of what the factor is going to be and how much money they got, Michael and I figured about 192,000. I mean, it helps. It helps.
Yeah, I'm not turning it down.
Yeah,
I'm
not
just,
turning
I'm,
it, but other places are
disappointed.
getting millions. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
and that is, it's kind of the eternal, there's no cavalry for Medfield because we do not have the commercial tax income and essentially we pay for our schools largely by ourselves. And these grants that come in through Title I the numbers don't work for our district. We're just in a bad spot.
Yeah, so Michael, that if that were to come, then you're projecting a deficit of whatever, 464, something like that.
So we would have to have a discussion about that 190,000+ because that is a carryover grant. We think it's going to be a carryover
We
grant.
think so, yes.
Yeah, so which would mean, what that means, Tim, is that if it is a carryover grant, that you can use it within 2 fiscal years. So you could use it next year and you don't have to spend it this year. Again, we have to have that discussion. It's not a decision that we're going to just decide. We could use it towards this year's deficit. We also know that there is approximately $500,000 of extra Chapter 70 that the town did receive earlier this year. So it's a bigger discussion, I think, that we need to have.
Yeah, because don't forget, if folks don't know that Chapter 70 money is money that the state gives towns that is earmarked directly for school spending. And because of the timing issues we had and no special town meeting in the fall, that additional money that was allocated could not be allocated to the schools because our budget was set at the annual town meeting. So in order for that extra $500,000 that Michael just mentioned to go directly to the schools, we would have had to have had a special town meeting in the fall, which didn't happen. But we've had a meeting with the warrant committee and a meeting with the Board of Selectmen. And I think there's every intent, as they always have, is to make sure that the schools get the Chapter 70 money. It's just not a direct mechanism like it typically is in a regular year.
Yep.
Okay, no, that's helpful. But so that there's still be a gap without the Title I, but at least it's earmarked in theory come June. If it's voted in, then that covers a large portion of it.
So another part of our meeting today with the commissioner was that there is an expectation there'll be a second stimulus this year in this calendar year with the new administration coming in. However, it might be different. It may not be one that goes directly to schools. It may be another one that goes to the towns, and then we'd have to work with the town on that. But we'll see what that looks like. Again, we've talked at meetings in the past that we were hoping it was going to be much like 08 and 09, where it really did backfill the losses that cities and towns had with their revenue, and then it carried over to schools. So it was really a helpful way that they did that in 08 and 09. We're hoping that happens again with the Biden administration. So we'll just see how that plays out right now. There's been a lot of promises, so we'll see what happens with those promises and see whether the schools are beneficiaries of that or not.
Yeah, that is, you can assume. I mean, it's amazing when you see like the cost of hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes, and it's not going anywhere next year. You know, I mean, next September, we're going to still have those. So.
We will still have sanitation needs, certainly. And yeah, hopefully things will, the virus will let off the gas a little bit, but we will still need to be very cautious, I think. Okay.
That's great. I mean, it's not great news, but it's good that we're at least getting consistent, these reports and these things.
Is anybody else, or does anybody else in the committee have comments or questions for Michael right now? Anyone? All right. So Dr. Marsden, lacking any other input into that part, particularly, would you like to then move on to the school learning model progress? And then after that, we'll do public input on both the budget and the model progress.
Sure, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think, we had a lot of items under this, so it made sense to do bullet points on the agenda. So we'll look at student learning time regulations, K-8, 9 through 12 special education students, expanded synchronous learning, which is tied directly to the student learning time regulations, full day kindergarten update, and then Wednesday in-person synchronous. So I think we touched upon some of these in previous meetings, but I thought it'd be a good time to give an update. If you remember, on December 14th, I sent a COVID update number 44 to parents, talking about the proposed learning requirements that the commissioner was going to propose to the Board of Education. They did support those, and it will change what the regulations are. There never were any regulations for student learning time. It was really a regulation around what the day needed to be in terms of length. Now there are new regulations that will go into effect on January 19th, actually articulate what the hours need to be for student learning time at different levels. So if a district is in a hybrid model like we are currently in, the expectation is that over a 2-week period, that there would be an average of 35 synchronous and or live instructional hours, and there'd be communication and live check-ins with students every single day for those kids. So the impetus of this isn't to extend our current in-person days. That's not what we're trying to do here. That's not what the state's trying to do. The state is trying to do, I think, what lots of folks have been asking for, and what we fully support here, is making sure that there's some live instruction and connections with kids on those remote days. Making sure that there's key connections to children with their classmates, with the teacher, and that there's some sort of synchronous live streaming or live instruction going on while the kids are at home. And I think that's what this is all about. This isn't about extending a school day where kids are already in person. It's making sure the connection is made for those kids that are at home. So as I said in the email on the 14th to parents, we fully support this. There's no question about that. So, we did not make the 35 hours once DESE collected all the data from all the districts. We did not make that. We were short. So now we're looking, this is a great opportunity now to provide more instruction, live instruction, synchronous instruction to our kids. So beginning on the 19th, we'll have expanded synchronous learning as required by the state. As you know, we just spent 2 hours in an executive session discussion negotiations. So negotiations are ongoing with that. We have another session tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So the teachers are working hard on that, and we're working hard on that. And we want to come to an agreement. But either way, we'll start expanded synchronous learning on January 19th. So that's good news for our kids and good news for our families. In terms of the special education, we're really excited. We started this week having our students come back in K-8 on a 4-day schedule, those special education students on an academic IEP. That has gone incredibly well. Our teachers, principals, teacher assistants, everyone's done a fantastic job with that. So that's been going very well. And our parents who are really supportive in terms of the transportation piece there. So that's gone well. We're now working on looking at 9 through 12 and then seeing how we can expand it currently to include some 504 students now. We definitely have some 504 students in the mix right now, but trying to expand that and see how we can do that as a K-12 initiative. Expanded synchronous learning time, as I said, will begin on the 19th. We've outfitted all of our classrooms with an additional camera with a microphone in a Chromebox so that the camera and the microphone will run off of the Chromebox that's hardwired. Our teachers have begun additional professional development on that. We're looking forward to providing those opportunities for our students. I mean, I think whenever you're looking at that and everyone we've talked to, it's really just getting used to it as a management issue. So you're trying to making sure you can manage that what's going on in front of you live and what's going on the computer. And there's some really good best practices that we're working with our teachers on. I fully expect them to do a wonderful job with that. I have no doubt they're going to be successful with that. I don't think it will be perfect on day one. I don't think you walk in on the 19th and all of a sudden you're the best live streamer in the world. But we know we have teachers at the high school that have been doing the live streaming. We have the middle school that have been doing it. I know some elementary teachers are starting next week to try it out. But the 19th is when we start in full as a district, grades 1 through 12. K is not in those recommendations and not in the regulations. They are not required to do that. But we have great news about full day kindergarten. So on January 25th, we'll be bringing back our full day kindergarten kids for 4 days. We're working on the transportation piece now, but we worked over vacation and got before vacation, we were looking at ways that we could take children from their classroom to fit everyone in at 6 feet and hire additional teachers and do it all that way. We kind of went back to the drawing board because we knew that wasn't very successful. It's a difficult decision for parents to say, well, I want my child to, after spending 4 or 5 months with a teacher, I'm going to pull my child and put them in another classroom. So we went back to the drawing board a little bit and tried to figure out a way to do that. We did. The only, I guess, impact it would be is that we are moving some classrooms out of their current classrooms, and we'll be putting 2 classrooms in the gymnasium and 2 in the cafeteria. So we've had to purchase technology for that, room dividers, classroom dividers, desk dividers, all of that. So we've been working on that on break, and we'll be in good shape to start on the 25th. Once we finalize all the transportation, which I know Missy has sent out a survey about that. We'll get that information back. Missy and I will have a Zoom with kindergarten parents, so we'll be able to answer any and all questions they have, but we're excited to offer that to all of our full day kindergarten kids starting on the 25th of January. Lastly, an update on Wednesdays in person and synchronous. We talked about this at previous meetings, that our goal is to add an additional in-person day for each cohort and alternating cohorts on Wednesdays while we're still in the hybrid, so that, for instance, one week it could be cohort A in there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the following week it would be cohort B Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we made a commitment at that last meeting that we talked about that we would do that if we could make sure that that's synchronous. So we don't want to put another remote day on students or families, and we want to make sure that that is a synchronous learning for our kids. So we're working on that. That's something that we are hoping and planning to roll out at the end of the month. So Still more to come on that once, again, part of negotiations, and we'll continue to do that. But that's something we've talked about probably 2 meetings prior. So that's all I have for the update. Just, really good news. We continue to make progress of getting more students back in keeping at that 6 foot distance, that safety distance that we've had. And we're just trying to be creative and get students back in, because we know that's the best thing for our kids. So happy about the live streaming and the additional synchronous learning that's coming to our district, and looking forward to implementing that. And I hope people are patient with everyone, because it's a brand new skill set for everyone, and both kids and teachers. And we'll do a great job, but it will take a little bit of time. That's all I have, Madam Chair, on that.
Unmute. Actually, I'm gonna put Andrew on warning that I'm not gonna make you talk now, but I'm gonna open this up to the committee. But if you have things that you are thinking of or strike you through this conversation, please let us know as well. I mean, obviously, you are always free to pipe up, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we wanted your perspective as well. So in saying that, I'd like to open that also up to the rest of the committee to ask Dr. Marsden or make any comments about the plans or anything like that, questions that you have for him, and financial impacts, anything.
Yes, I've been, obviously, we've all been talking to other parents. Some of them that are out there is just, Jeff, we still intend the synchronous stuff to start as of what date? The increased synchronous learning?
January 19th.
The 19th. And the other question was around, so we've brought back the K-8s. I've heard great feedback just this week from some parents whose kids are back for with the IEP situation. And do we intend to expand that into the high school at all?
Yeah, so 9 through 12 will be in there. We're looking at what that natural break would be, or a natural inclusion. Maybe that was start a second semester, which would start in the first week of February. So we're working on that. It's a little bit more challenging in terms of the scheduling and that kind of thing. So we're working on that. I know that Mary's working really hard with Robert and Heather and Jeff to make sure that happens.
Yeah, and I, okay, yeah, I think that was my last question I had. I was trying to think of, I've spoken to so many people in the last 2 weeks. So, cool. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One, I love the fact that we were able to get creative with the kindergarten and get them back in. Have we explored any other similar approaches for like Memorial? Right, as gyms, cafeterias, finding dividers, more just have we ever, or others, like, is there any way we can continue to get creative?
Yeah, I think the one thing that, and we've talked about this before, I think is the numbers of kids that are in kindergarten are really what's allowing us to do this. We only have 164 kids in kindergarten right now. If we look at grade 1, it's 189, grade 2 is 192, grade 1 is 191. We're at 211 in grade 5. So that prevents us from really trying to get, we couldn't do a whole grade, put it that way. If we were using other alternate spaces, we couldn't do an entire grade level in terms of getting them in there. But kindergarten we can, because there's only 164 kids. Even though the projection was much higher, we have 10 kids that are homeschooled in kindergarten. We have other kids that have gone to private school for 1 year. And as we typically do in Medfield, which is something that, we know because we deal with the enrollment pieces, but typically we have parents that hold their kids back in kindergarten every year. So that number ranges anywhere from 14 to 21. Each year we tend to have, as we call them, red shirts. So we typically, this year, I think we have either 18 or 19. So all that adds up to allowing us to have a smaller number grade level, and allows us to get that particular class in right now.
Okay, yeah, and you said that before, so that's helpful. And the second one, I think I heard it, you mentioned it before, but it might be worthwhile for others to hear. As we expand that synchronous side, internet continues to come up, like with my own kids in the high school and middle school. So I think there's some improvements on the way. You mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that we've had lately is issues with around our firewall. So that new firewall is going in over the weekend. Owen is going to be, building that for us and building some redundancy in it. One of the issues that, and he does a really good job explaining it, is that we have two separate firewalls, one that just deals with the elementary schools and one that deals with middle school and high school. And the one that is the middle school, high school is the one that's been a little problematic and actually crashed. So we've ordered a new one, and he's going to install that and build that in for us this weekend, and we should be good to go at that point.
NMA, Megan?
In terms of the, you said you've outfitted all the classrooms with cameras and the technological equipment to make the synchronized learning seamless. Did all of that new technology get covered in the CARES Act or one of the grants?
Yeah, Michael, you had the breakdown on that. We had, I know we spent, just on cameras, I thought we spent 47,000. I think it was that. I have to double check. Michael, do you have that?
I just wanted, the bottom line is that was covered.
Yes, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, so because that's a cost we wouldn't have normally had, unless it was COVID-19, that we could put it in CARES or one of the other grant ones that we had. So
Yeah, it's okay, Michael.
No, I have it right here. I have it in front of me.
Never ask Michael for a number and then think he's not going to get it to you.
So for web cameras, we spent $3,000 in web cameras, and that invoice was on December 15th. And then the other IT item came.
You got the microphones too, right? The 360-degree microphones.
Yeah. So we have the microphones. They came in at. Microphones.
Expensive.
Yep, microphones came in at $2,800.
That's it.
Yep, $2,800 for the microphone.
We also had some though. We had some. This isn't just So we had outfitted classrooms prior to this for this. So we actually just had to kind of top off the rest of the rooms that we hadn't done. And
Chromeboxes too. So Chromeboxes, monitors, everything.
So
and then if you add in the MacBooks that all the teachers.
Oh yeah.
So that was over 300,000. Yeah.
So we purchased 250 Chromebooks for $65,000. The microphones were 2,800. We have a Epson Power Light that came in at $3,000. And then the $3,000 for the speakers. So we're looking at about $70,000 that we spent in the month of December just to get us ready and up to speed. And I believe it was mostly the elementary schools and the middle school, because the high school had them already installed.
So bottom line, a significant chunk of the federal aid that we've received has gone to outfitting our schools for the synchronous learning. So, okay.
We put some money there, yes, no doubt.
My question around that is, excuse me, thank you, is really the PD around that and getting teachers comfortable with all the new equipment. When is that happening? How is it happening?
So we had professional development before school started, right? And went on the laptops and how they could use the Macs. We did all that work and doing Zoom through that. We started the professional development last week, this week with Blake in the elementaries, and then the high school starts next week. And we have a professional development day on the 15th. And then in between, teachers can sign up in their grade levels or their departments to work with our tech staff. We've really, what we're doing is pooling all of our tech staff, kind of all hands on deck, instead of just having people assigned to a building like we normally do. And then have the tech staff supporting people as we go through, providing training. And then this is going to be ongoing training, because it's not going to be, it's not a one-shot deal where you do a couple hours of training and all of a sudden you're an expert. It's going to be job embedded, ongoing training that our technology staff is going to work with our teachers. Christine Power has been scheduling all that and working with the staff with that as well.
Good, thank
Jeff,
you.
just to speak to that, as parents, particularly at the elementary ages, also have to kind of think about synchronous learning during their day. Will there be like a tech helpline or ways that they can get information and ways that they can make sure that their kids are in if they're having difficulties? You know, I assume that Missy or Dr. Billsborough and
Yep.
Mr. Grenham and Mrs. Caulfield will send out information about how to get kind of fast help.
Absolutely. Yep, all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that we want to be clear about, which I think is good for families and for teachers, is that we're going to, if a teacher, let's say in grade 2 is doing the math lesson, we're going to make sure that it's around the same time or there's a schedule so that when you're a remote child at home, you know what time your math lesson is, you know what time your language arts lesson is, and you know what time your morning meeting is, and all those kinds of things that are happening, so that it's consistent and families can plan for that and teachers can plan for that. So that will all, I mean, that's all part of that process of getting the word out and developing the schedule, all that, which is happening now, all behind the scenes to get that ready to go live on the 19th.
Andrew,
I actually
do you have
had
any thoughts about, please hit me.
I have one, but it's kind of evolved now into more of a comment because you already kind of talked about it. But I was just going to bring up the Wi-Fi because that is definitely a huge issue. It went down, I think, Tuesday afternoon at the end of the day in one of my classes.
It did.
And like it's the cornerstone of like our remote model. And like, I mean, even in normal times, like technology is everything. Like, and I remember, you know, it would be a huge problem, but especially now when teachers are leaning on it so heavily. Even today, so it went down this afternoon and I was supposed to have a live stream for my teachers and we got on for like 2 minutes and then it just crashed and burned. And so now I have not got the lesson and now I'm kind of confused in the homework because I haven't like gotten that lesson, which is frustrating and it's not anyone's fault. But I'm glad to hear there's improvement coming down the line.
So I just to clarify that it is the firewall. So that is the Wi-Fi is fine. The access points are fine. People are connected. It's just the firewall, which gets everybody off. It gets you into the internet. That's the issue. So it was a firewall again. That's why it's all being rebuilt this weekend. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We just.
I know everyone calls it and Andrew, not the only one. Everyone calls it the umbrella Wi-Fi, but it's really the firewall.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
Whole internet is down.
Yeah.
The cloud is really just somebody else's computer.
And then another thing that I just wanted to kind of bring up was that like the new kind of like synchronous learning model. I know like Medfield kind of got slammed in whenever that ranking was for like the like hybrid, they're like ranking hybrid models, whatever that was. And I think I read it and I think it was kind of an unfair evaluation because like I don't think, at least at the upper levels, I can't speak for the younger levels, but like instruction time doesn't always equate to like education. So I was talking about this in one of my classes and we were saying like most of my learning happens when I'm studying for the test. Like I'm not like in my free time, I'm not like, let me just like do some anatomy Quizlets or whatever it is. It normally happens when I'm like, okay, I have a test tomorrow and I'm going to sit down and like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn. And then I get all the information and that's kind of where the real learning happens. So I think the idea that all learning happens strictly in front of Zoom is kind of a short-sighted way of looking into a hybrid model. And that I think Medfield for the most part has been doing a pretty good job. So I just wanted to, I don't know if we've touched on that already or talked about it last meeting, but that's something that kind of bothered me when I saw it because I was like, I know Medfield's better than that. And then kind of off that, I know it's going to be a big shift for teachers, like the professional development, like you guys are talking about, but also the way that like our remote lessons are structured. I know that right now it's mostly like, it's like I have like my Zoom check-ins or some live streams, but then like it's mostly just like worksheets and like kind of like self-guided, self-paced learning. And that's going to be a stark contrast against like 7 hours of Zooming and what that's going to look like and how it's going to be engaging for kids at home. So I think it's going to present a challenge to teachers and students alike. But you know, that's not really our decision anymore. So,
You know, all change is hard, and I can't think of a time in which there has been more change more frequently when everything seems to stay the same as the last 9 months. I think that in kind of self-evaluating where we were this fall, as a district, we were very focused on getting kids actually into the classroom. And we were really successful with that. Truly, as I've been looking at other districts that have, and what their models are for school, for the entire district, we're one of the few places that was able to get kids right into school in September and have a kind of consistent schedule around that. And now it's simply time, now that the state has kind of given us this rubric for what they want and what they feel is best for kids. And I think we do too. Now we increase that learning time so that we're getting more connection. But we also understand that it's going to be a change and it's going to be ramping up, and that there will be things that just some days, probably early on, that just don't look great. And I think that we all just have to kind of be patient with each other hour to hour so that the days go well, right? So,
I would say,
but I appreciate that.
I would add to that too, and thank you, Andrew, for that feedback. I would also add too that the teachers that have been live streaming now for months at the high school have really reported very positive outcomes. They feel like it took some time to get used to, but they did a survey right before break, and teachers are saying things like live streaming has been a game changer. The kids are included, especially with this quarantine issue, right? So if we have kids that are quarantined for 10 or 14 days, now they're live streaming into the classroom. They're not looking on Google Classroom to see what they have to do or what. No, they're still part of what's going on, because we've talked about sometimes when you quarantine and you're a close contact, it's bad luck, right? You just happen to be in a place where someone was positive, and you shouldn't be penalized for that. So the fact that we'll be able to live stream and have those kids as a part of the classroom, and again, the 15, 20 or so teachers at the high school that have been doing it consistently now for a couple of months have really reported very positive experiences from what they're doing. So we're looking forward to that being expanded, and just, there is a learning curve there for everyone. So just as long as there's patience, and it's not going to be perfect on January 19th.
But thank you for that feedback, Andrew. I appreciate it. I always very much appreciate your honesty. You're not somebody who necessarily sugarcoats anything, and that's really important. Thank you. Anybody else have either questions for Dr. Marston or for Andrew, as a standing member of the student here, or anyone else? If not, I am going to open both the budget update and the school learning model to public input. So if you have public input, I see that people are raising their hands already. You have 3 minutes to do your statement. Unfortunately, we cannot have a dialogue back and forth, but school committee members can ask you to clarify your statement, and we will take it under advisement. And like I said, there's no votes on anything tonight, so certainly you have plenty of time if you need to think it over. Okay. Owen, can you bring over Bonnie, please? Bonnie Marcette. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Thank
How are
you
you?
so much. I'm well, I guess, right? Hanging in
We're
there.
all fine. Everything's fine.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to, I don't have a statement. I just have questions clarifying around, and I know you can't answer questions because you just said that. So, but I guess I will just ask the questions, and maybe then the answers can come out down the road. So
Sounds good.
I just have questions around IEP. So for the high school, looking at, I know Mary Brule sent an email to parents saying that they were working on having students 9 through 12 who are on IEPs return to school 4 days a week, I believe, back in December 15th. And then tonight you discussed it and mentioned February 1st. And so I was curious, and I know you can't answer this, is are the students on IEPs returning to their classes, or would they be in a cohort C situation like at the elementary school or the K through 8? So that isn't clear. So that'd be great if we could have clarity around that. And then do union negotiations play a role in the return? And could we move forward earlier with this plan and just not include electives? Because I know most of the core classes are year-long classes. So it seems like from what Dr. Marsden had said, the February 1st start date was a better time because that is the second semester, I believe. I'm still getting used to the trimester semester piece, but knowing that the majority of classes are year long, you know, I think I would love to see this happen sooner. And then the other question, is there room for students to be safely in person for all high school classes? And the last question is, you'd mentioned bringing back students on 504s, some students, I wasn't sure, just clarity around that. And what was the plan? Would that be just K to 8? Would that be 9 to 12? Is that something that would be happening after February 1st? So those are my questions, not my comments. So I apologize, but I hope that maybe we could get some answers to those.
Sure. Thank you, Bonnie. So I wrote those down, and I'll speak with Mary in the morning about that. I mean, that's a great point about doing it before the second semester, because there's only electives are, you know, half a year. So that's a really good point. The sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. So I'll bring that up, and Mary and I will talk about that in the morning.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you're doing. I know this is a really difficult time in education, and we appreciate you. And I know this is hard, and everyone has different perspectives and different needs and different wants and different homes that they're living in with kids with different needs. So I know this is not easy. And just a quick shout out to Andrew. I always enjoy hearing your opinion. So I appreciate that. And I would love to hear from the elementary kids, but that would be a little trickier. So I think you're very eloquent.
Arrange that.
Thank you.
Right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
They just want more recess.
Yeah.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate it. Okay, Michelle Laderos. If you would like to bring her over, Owen. Thank you, Bonnie. Can you hear Michelle? Oh, there you are. Great.
Hi there. How are you? Thanks so much for bringing me over. I want to, again, just as Bonnie said, thank you all for everything you've done. I know there's really no right answer and no predicting the future. So appreciate all that you and the principals have done, and the teachers especially, to get us back, create some sort of normalcy for the kids. But I still feel like our learners, and I'm speaking as a younger learner mom, need more. So I'm Michelle Laderhose. I live on Evergreen Way. And I think these updates tonight are definitely a step in the right direction, but I do have a few comments. So I'm speaking, I have a first and a third grader. I have two different kids with such different needs, as so many families do. And I want to start by saying I am so happy to hear about the kindergarten families. I have friends, even a family member, that will get this gift. It is truly such a gift to be back in Memorial 4 days a week. And I'm so glad you were able to figure it out with the space in the existing building. So my first comment is, and it came up a little bit earlier, are there any other buildings that you'll be able to follow suit with and get creative? I have a Hvac student and a Memorial student, so would love to even see my Hvac student get in there a little bit more. He's in third grade. But I can't help but wonder about my first grader at Memorial. The first graders are so vulnerable right now. They've missed so much of kindergarten. They were fully remote for a whole term, and now just days a week. I would love to see, maybe there's another day that they could get in the building. Would you ever consider just bringing back all the first graders back on Wednesdays instead of just cohort specific, since the kindergartners will be there already 4 days a week? That's one idea. And I do continue to hear about the enrollment numbers, and I get it, but I have to say, not once has the district reached out to first grade families to see how many students that you would actually be needing to manage and that would need to want full-time in person. And months ago, the district, and this was a little hard, actually sent out a survey lumping first and through fifth grade into one surveys, and our schools are not even structured that way. So my firstie and my third grader have totally different needs. One can actually read directions, the other cannot. So they have such different needs for what they need in school. So I've reached out to the school committee and the principals a couple of times in the fall with my questions and concern, and I do appreciate the reply. And I know everyone is doing the best that they can, but I feel like we need to advocate a little bit more for the Memorial first graders. And I'd be happy to work to do whatever it takes to see some movement there and to help be a little bit more of a voice for those first graders at Memorial. And then, the only other question I have, or two more comments, is one, I'm curious if you are charging a full day kindergarten tuition for the remaining of this year. And then two, those half day conferences, where the have to jump on a Zoom with our kids off the bus and behind us to have a conference, a parent teacher conference, were an interesting model for the fall semester. So I'd like to reconsider the half day and jumping on Zoom for a conference when my kids are actually home. So those were just a few comments from me. Thank you very much. I appreciate all that you've done and your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. I
Good
really
feedback.
do
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, truly. Okay, I see that Mary McGinnis is on. If you could bring her over, please, Owen, I'd appreciate it.
I have to click my own buttons. Look at that. Hi. My first comment was just, again, to chime in with the voices that are thrilled with what has happened just in the last week for students on IEPs through grade 8. It has, we're only a weekend, but I've already seen what an impact it's making. My second comment was really regarding, I have several of them that kind of cluster around the idea of the live streaming, particularly below the high school level. As a college professor, I know how incredibly hard it is to keep even 17 and 18-year-olds engaged online. Keeping younger children engaged seems like an extreme uphill battle. I'm concerned about it from a pedagogical point of view, but that's not really a concern I need to worry about right now. I'm also concerned about it more from a logistic point of view, because I'm just thinking about, in our house, when I have a Zoom going and my husband has a Zoom going and both of my kids have Zooms going, everything gets really slow and really glitchy. And I'm wondering how logistically it's going to work when we have a district full of kids who have differential access to resources, to high-speed internet, to supports at home for those days, trying to get that kind of education done on their own. So that's all I really had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mary. Good feedback. I think that's one thing that we found out last spring, that there were some issues around Wi-Fi at homes and devices. So we have over 300 devices out right now from the district into families and in the community that needed devices. And we've actually put a couple of hotspots. We don't have any more, but we've been able to connect families with providers of Wi-Fi and internet to really get low cost, high speed. So we've been able to do that. There was a program that was going on in the spring that we were able to hook families up with. So that's definitely a consideration. I will say that it may be new to Medfield starting January 19th, but it's not new to the rest of the area. And there are some great examples of best practices happening in school districts all around us with live streaming, even at the younger grades. So I think that I feel confident that it may not be perfect in the beginning, but I feel confident that our teachers and our kids are going to do really well with this. Because
Dr. Martin,
there are
you
really
may
great
also
examples everywhere.
You may want to also clarify that we are not looking at having, first graders sitting in front of a screen all day long when they are at home. That we
Yeah,
have
that's
kind
not
of
the
developmentally appropriate expectations for being able
Correct.
to, yeah. So it's, at the height. I just think that please believe that we continue to think about kids within their developmental stage and abilities to kind of tolerate these things. So, okay. Do I have anyone else who would like to come over? Okay. And this will be our last one. Peter Bingenheimer. Can you please bring him over? And I hope that I did not butcher his name. All right, and then we will also take Steve, who I suspect is Steve Caskey, and that will be the last comment.
Hi there. Yes, thank you. This is
Hi,
Peter
Peter.
Bingenheimer. Hi, you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you did a very good job with my name. Thank you. So I live on Marlin Road, and I have a kindergartner and a third grader, and we're certainly very encouraged by the news about kindergarten and appreciate all the efforts of everyone to work through all these challenges. And certainly the kindergarten step is great progress. But I have two specific questions related to the younger age kids, the elementary age kids. And specifically, it sounded almost from Dr. Marston's comments as though there's really no path to getting first graders, 1 through 5, back into more than the 2 days a week in the hybrid model plus the alternating Wednesdays. And I was hoping you could confirm whether or not that's the case, whether I'm interpreting that correctly. If you could give a specific answer on that, that would be helpful, as well as whether there's anything in the MOA that requires that the students remain 6 feet apart, because I think many of us are aware that other districts that are surrounding us are finding ways to get more elementary schools kids in the classroom for greater periods of time. So I'd appreciate understanding specifically if there's a limitation in the MOA on spacing of the children. Thank you.
Happy to answer that. Thanks for the feedback, Peter. A couple of things. To answer your first question around getting other pathways, we don't really have one right now unless it's under 6 feet. If we go below 6 feet, like if we go to a 3 foot physical distancing, then we could probably get almost every kid in the district back in tomorrow if we did that. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Your point around the MOA states that staff have to be 6 feet. It is silent on students separated by 6 feet. However, just because it's silent on that doesn't mean that if we were to go to 3 feet, it doesn't trigger Chapter 150 to negotiate that out. So we'd have to, even though it's not in the MOA, this is Massachusetts, and any change in work conditions like that would have to be negotiated. And I would say, I would add too, with the other districts, the superintendency is a pretty tight knit group. So I know what's going on around everywhere. And I think everyone is, other than Dover, that's at 5.5 feet. Everyone around us that has elementary kids in are still at 6 feet.
Thank
Okay,
you,
great.
Peter. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, the drawback on that, on the comment I'll make.
Steve, oh, wait. Actually, let's get Steve in here. We did say that we would not be commenting. So I'm fine with Dr. Marston answering specific questions. But unless it's clarifying, Leo, let's kind of move to Steve. And then we do really need to continue to allow the meeting to go on. And Lynn, I sincerely hope that you will either write us or we can have a conversation later.
I think we should bring Lynn over.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
If Lynn wants to go, she can go. She can go in front and I'll wait for her.
No, actually, I'm sorry. We really are at the point where we need to move on with the meeting. So Steve, go ahead.
Okay, so just 5 people. Okay. I think it's great that we have moved to the minimum requirements that DESE has mandated upon everybody. It's kind of disappointing that we were already in the bottom 2/3 of districts before this actually happened. And I think if we want to get all of our kids back in school, it's reasonable to explore and discuss 3 feet. That is what Steve Resch suggested to add to the next Board of Health agenda. Many towns have already moved below this 6 foot threshold. Dover, King Philip, Hanover, Cambridge, Stoughton, Burlington,
So
all
did
these,
not, Steve.
they actually voted to do it. They actually voted to do it.
I know what they
they-
voted to do. They're in the exact same position we are. I'm not going to argue with you here, but I told you that before. And
But they did vote to do it, right?
Okay,
If
all
possible,
right.
Sure.
if feasible, they would.
I think that we should just
Sure.
let Steve have his comment.
would
Okay,
like to
and then we'll go
reclaim-
from
I would
there.
like
That's
to
what we've
reclaim my
set
time.
parameters for. Okay,
I would like to reclaim my time. These decisions were based on science and data. If parents want their kids back in school, and we wanted our kids back in school instead of waiting on mandates, we took surveys in the preferred model of education for the next 8 to 12 weeks. 60% of parents said they want their kids full in person. They said, will you enroll your child in cohort D if 3 feet or more were implemented? 83% of parents said they would not send their kids into cohort D. 83% said they would stay in school. And 61% of parents said they support going from 6 feet to 3 feet. I mean, the parents have spoke. And I know Superintendent Marsden said that we would have to negotiate this, but why aren't we doing something about this? Why aren't we being proactive? And I know, Jess, you said the CDC guidelines, but the American Association of Pediatrics, along with DESE and other school districts, have moved below 6 feet. So I'm not sure why we're stuck on 6 feet.
okay.
And
Thank
as
you.
we're stuck, our kids are sitting home and they're suffering, along with emotional issues and learning issues, especially where we're so far behind in many of the other districts. And we talk about close districts. Westwood has been doing this from the beginning. We've had other educators come on to these meetings and speak to how far their schools are in regards to Medfield. And we're supposed to be a leading school in a leading district. We're behind these towns. We are so far behind these towns. We need to do more. We have to put our kids first.
All right,
instead
Steve,
of bickering
please
with
wrap
each
it up.
other. Well, I was trying to, you interrupted me. We need to put our kids first before we worry about the negotiations. Let's make a move. Why doesn't the school committee vote on doing this and then see what happens afterwards? Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, so we need to move on to new business, but if you have additional comments or anything that you would like us to consider, please feel free to reach out to all of us. This email is forwarded through the entire committee as well as to Dr. Marston at scchair@email.medfield.net. All right. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And we do spend a lot of time answering emails. So, okay. So on to new business. We have the new high school schedule for, which is going to be presented by Robert Parga and Heather Mendoza, principal and vice principal of the Medfield High School.
So Madam Chair, just a little background on this. So as you know, we've talked about this in previous meetings where the high school schedule is the same schedule that's been there essentially with some tweaks for the past 20 plus years. And, you know, one of the things that we had done through Challenge Success and also the SEL task force was take a look at, you know, how we can change the schedule in a way that is great for students and also satisfies the needs that teachers have in terms of planning. So I think that they've been working, the high school staff been working really hard on this. They've had a group of teachers working with them, and I think the presentation will be a good one to show you exactly why we're excited about implementing a new schedule for the high school next year. I don't know if did Robert and Heather come over yet?
Yes, they are over. Do you have a screen to share, or should we get Owen to help you out with that, or Robert?
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Good to see you. Yeah, we submitted the slides to Andrea a couple days ago, so I assumed somebody has them. Owen, if you can.
I have
Oh,
them.
Jeff,
Yeah.
you're here as well. Hi, it's nice to see you.
If somebody wants to give me sharing ability, I can share them as well.
I think Owen just gave you co-host.
Okay.
Sorry, Jeff, I didn't know you were coming tonight. Apologize. Jeff Sperling is also here.
I'm here. Nice to see everyone. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Jeff.
Can you see that?
Yes, we're good.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Well, it's good to see you again. And I know you introduced Heather and Jeff, but for those out there, Jeff Sperlin is one of our assistant principals. Heather Mendoza is our other. And this is something, as Dr. Marsden alluded to, that's been in the works for a while. We actually were making a lot of progress with this, with presentations with faculty. And then in March, we had the pandemic, the closure, and sort of had to put it aside. However, our intention was always to launch it in the fall of 2021. So we're still, no pun intended, on schedule. But we're excited about this new master schedule for the high school. We believe that it will better fit the needs of our students. I know in one of our school committee meetings that I attended in the fall, we had talked a little bit about this, and Dr. Marsden, I think, mentioned that we think the existing schedule has been in place for over 20 years, and that's not to say that it's outdated. In fact, what you'll see are a lot of elements of that, but we just felt that there were more items that we wanted to include for our students and staff. So it has been shared with faculty. It's gotten a lot of faculty input. We've made some adjustments, and we're excited about where it is right now. Heather, if you want to move that up one, please. Thank you. So what we ended up doing was we really looked at our existing schedule, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose any of what is in our schedule that we value. You know, sometimes change for the sake of change isn't always good. So we really wanted to protect some elements of that schedule. But there were a lot of things when we surveyed teachers and we surveyed students, and we said, what are the important elements in a new schedule you think you would benefit from? These were the key items that we really focused in on. Fewer than 7 periods in a day. As those of you who are familiar with the high school schedule know, we have 3 days a week right now where students go to all 7 classes, and then we have our 2 block days. We're not running that schedule right now because of the alternate schedule we're on with what we've been doing this year. So some of our freshmen actually don't know our old schedule. But the students were feeling as though what they enjoyed most about the block days is the fact that they got a break from some of their other classes, which lightened the load at night. Common planning time was important to our teachers. Our existing schedule, or the schedule we used prior to this year, did not have it built in a way that was consistent across the board. We did have common planning time in there, but it was not done in a way that every teacher, every department had it, and it was inconsistent at times. Some kind of flex period and some personalized learning opportunities. So this is really the big change that you're going to see in the schedule, and the item that we're most excited about. One of the things, for those of you that have been on the SEL task force, for those of you that know, when we added a few things to our schedule going into the last school year, one of them was a study. And when we started doing our work with Challenge Success, and we started looking at things within a schedule that students were looking for, a study was something that was missing. We incorporated a study, and it's gone relatively well. I thought more students would be interested in signing up for a study, but regardless, an opportunity during the day that some students feel they needed was sort of put into the schedule. Flex time is a little different, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but basically what flex time is a time of the day where there are no classes, where students have the opportunity to choose what they need in a particular day. So they could use it as a study. They could set up an appointment and go meet with their math teacher or science teacher or whatever, or whoever they need to see. All teachers will be available to meet with students at that time. So students will have some choice in terms of what they need. A rotation in our schedule was something that we were looking for, meaning not having the same class meet at the beginning of the day and the same class meet at the end of the day. So rotating that over the course of the week was important. And better access to student support services. So in our old schedule, it was really hard for students sometimes to go see their guidance counselor or to go see any student support service they might need. The opportunities were during reading period, before school, after school, or they would have to miss some class time. So with flex time, that's another time during the day where students could make an appointment to see their guidance counselor or whoever they need to see. So we began to look at all of these items, looked at several models of schedules, visited some schools, and sort of settled on a schedule that has these components and a few others. So Heather, if you can move that up. So this is it. I'll let it sort of marinate for a second or so for those of you who may not be familiar with schedules. The first thing you'll notice is you don't see Monday, you don't see Friday, you don't see Thursday, you don't see days of the week. What you see are numbered days. So several reasons for that. One, you know, in order for us to cycle through, if you will, all of the courses in flex time evenly, it sort of goes through an 8-period cycle. So let's just say the first day of school next year was a Monday. That would be day 1. Tuesday would be day 2, and we would go on to the next week. So the middle of the following week, we would start with day 1 again whenever we got past day 8. Another advantage to that is we don't have to miss a particular day in the event of a holiday, in the event of Thanksgiving, for instance, Thursday, Veterans Day, whatever it happens to be, we can just bump it to the next day. So we're not missing that. If it was a block day, we're not missing that block day. So if you look at, say, C1, which is day 1, if that were a student's biology class, the student would have biology at day 1, period 1. The next time that student would have biology would be the end of the day on day 3, if you can see that. And then they would have it again at the beginning of the day on day 5, period 4, day 6, and so on. If a math class was E period, so on day 1, that student would have math class at 11:20 on day 1, and then would have it at the beginning of the day on day 2. So if you looked at the 8-day cycle, all of these classes, including flex period, meet the same number of times. So that's sort of how it cycles through. You'll notice that the periods are 67 minutes long. The current, when we have 7-day periods, or 7-period days, sorry, the periods are about 44 minutes long. When we have block periods, they're about 90 minutes long. We felt that we could deliver the same level of instruction, including science labs and things of that nature, in a 67-minute period. So that's sort of where we settled on that number. You will see an extended passing time there after block 1. This is something that we had talked about before we went into closing the building in the spring, and before we included a mask break during during our current schedule. We like that time. We think it's an opportunity for some downtime for students, for some downtime for faculty. So that's just going to be an extended passing time, and it comes at a very, very minimal amount of time that will be out of the classroom. If you look at the end of the day of each day, so on day 1, let's say day 1 is a Monday, that would be our schedule. From 2:07 to 2:50, the teachers would have common planning time. So there would be no after school help that day because there's a flex period that day. If you go to day 2, we do have extra help after school from 2:07 to 2:50, very similar to what we're doing now, because we don't have a flex day or flex period built into that day. So what we wanted to make sure was the students got whether we want to call it flex support or extra help, every day of the week. So some days it'll be during the school day, other days it will be after school. And you can see how the common planning time sort of cycles its way through the week as well. So those are some of the big changes. Heather's going to talk a little bit about the flex period when we get there. Heather, if you can advance one. So these are some of the big changes from what we're doing now. So it's the 7+ means 7 period plus a flex time. So that's kind of the name that we have right now. We were actually talking about this the other day. It's still maybe not as exciting of a name. So that might be something that will change at some point, but we're calling it flex period for now. It's the 8-day rotation. There'll be 5 periods in a day. So 3 of a student's classes will not meet each day, and those will rotate as well. We'll have 4 lunches, very similar to what we're doing now. This does not change the number of courses a student will take over the 4 years or in a year. The students will still be enrolled in 35 credits. It does not impact our courses, program of studies. The same courses that we're able to offer in our old schedule, we're able to offer in this schedule. Rotating time periods that I mentioned earlier means that classes are going to be offered at different times of the day rather than having the same class in the morning and the same class in the afternoon. And as I mentioned, the common planning time piece. So those will be the biggest things that folks will notice in a new schedule. If we can advance one, Heather, thank you. So that just sort of is a simple bell schedule. If it's basically what that first slide sort of represented. This is sort of the skeleton, if you will. You can see how the periods work on a typical day. We do, and we have created a half-day schedule as well. So on days that we have half days, whether it's professional development or whatever it needs to be, we've created a schedule for that as well, obviously much shortened periods. If we can advance one more, Heather. Thank you. So Heather's I believe it's Heather, is gonna take over and talk a little bit about the flex time period and how that's gonna be utilized during the day.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. So I just wanted to make sure that I explained a little bit of the flex time option. I think you've got a really good overview from Robert, but just making sure, I think when I first saw this schedule at a different school, this was the piece that really connected all the dots between what we had talked about at SEL and what we had talked about in challenge success over the previous couple of years. So again, this is the schedule. It's exactly the same as what Robert just showed you. But in it, there are 5 different opportunities for flex throughout the week or throughout the cycle. Day 1 will be called Flex 1, and then the students will have these Flex 2, 3, 4, and 5 on days 3, 4, 6, and 8. So during that time, what we're anticipating is on Flex 1 is that kids are going to meet in their advisories to start off the cycle. So it'll be an advisory. Our advisories right now have about 12 students in them because of the services that we're going to plan on offering during the flex time. It's going to be a little bit larger than that. So it'll probably be about 15 or 16 kids, but still by grade. And we're still anticipating that the advisor would follow the students for the 4 years that they're at the high school. We haven't figured out exactly how often the advisory portion is going to meet, but this flex time will happen at the beginning of every cycle. So what we want the advisors and the students to do during this Flex 1 meeting time is for the first half hour or so to meet with the students to make sure they have a good plan of what they're going to be doing during Flex 2 through Flex 5. So those are the other 4 days that this meets. So during that time, as they're setting up their week schedule, they'll be able to figure out, okay, I need some extra help in bio. I missed a test in my English class. So those are things that I'm going to need to be working on. So the teacher will help the students, particularly as they enter the high school, figure out what that time needs to look like. So we feel like some of the remote learning is kind of been doing pieces of this, but this will really help to, I think, bring kids along and make sure that they have a good understanding of the time management skills that we really want them to leave the high school with. So things that they'll be able to do during this Flex 2 through Flex 5 would be extra help or the makeup work with a specific teacher. And that would be based on the amount of seats that a student will see available in a teacher's room. So they'll sign themselves in there. They'll be able to do a self-directed study. As Robert said, we haven't had as many kids take advantage of study as people may have anticipated. So this gives every kid grade 9 through 12 the opportunity to have some time during the day to, get ahead, maybe work, remotely with a pair through Google Docs or Google Sheets, some collaboration. They'll be able to do meetings with guidance or other members of our student support team, RISE, places like that. So places that have been really busy during our reading periods, but reading's only been 20 minutes. This is when we would have class meetings, assemblies, surveys, like our Metro West Health survey would probably happen during this time because all students would be stopping to use this time at the same time. And then other approved activities such as, definitely taking advantage of our support places like the math lab, the writing center, our LMC, our library. So the benefits of this flex time that we've really talked about are the personalization, the academic support, and the enrichment that students will be able to utilize during that time. The number of periods, it's 67 minutes through each time, but it's 5 times throughout the 8 days, and it's spread out fairly well. I think it's early enough in the day that students can look ahead, but it's after a first period. So if they don't want to leave their work because because of something, they could get their work done from that first period class that they had or that first block class. Students will only take, up to 4 or 5 classes in one day. So that will definitely help spread out the work as well. And it gives the students the time that we've been looking for during the school day to get extra help and access all of the resources that we have built in. So Jeff's now going to talk about the Myflex Learning features of application that we've been looking at to support our program.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think one of the pieces that we looked into, and we certainly heard from schools that were using a similar schedule, was really having some system in place to help facilitate that flex period so that it wasn't kind of just this free-for-all and kids kind of roaming all over the place with really no confirmed destination. So Myflex Learning is a web-based app that'll be compatible with any device that our kids are currently using. It was developed by the same people that developed Aspen, which is our current student information system. So those two programs sync up completely. What that will allow teachers to do is to communicate to their students, but they'll also be able to access their students' Aspen account. So they'll be able to see their courses, their schedule, be able to take a look at how the kids are doing in their classes. So for example, if I have my kids during Flex 1 in my advisory, and I have a student who's never left that, they take a study every time, I would be able to have a conversation with that student and access their schedule, their grades, that type of thing, to maybe encourage them to spend some time with a math teacher, with an English teacher, maybe even go see their wellness teacher if they want to work on certain things. And really one of the huge benefits of it is that communication that goes back and forth. So teachers will be able to open up X number of slots per flex period, and students can sign up to go see that teacher. Conversely, teachers can also reach out directly and schedule students to come see them. So I think one of the pieces we've really learned a lot about during this period is the executive functioning and really ways that we can help students with their organizational skills. It would be great to say that kids could kind of plan their flex periods in a given week all on their own. We realize they're going to need some assistance with that. So this app will really help communicate back and forth between the students and the teachers, with the advisor being able to oversee all that for those students. So it really shouldn't be much in terms of a learning curve, because it all syncs up to Aspen, which our teachers are very competent with and our students are getting more and more competent with as well. So the hope is this would just kind of slide in as a nice add-on and really be able to enhance that flex period to make sure that kids are using it the right way, teachers are able to really communicate with their students, and we can maximize the benefit of that time on both sides. So the other period, again, that we talked a little bit about when we looked at the overall schedule is that the traditional after school time. So it's that 2:07 to 2:50. And again, the days where there are those flex periods, so those 5 out of 8, that flex time sort of becomes what kids would normally have to do after school. And we hear very often from students that that can be a challenge, especially if they're in the play or if they're an in-season athlete or if they've got musical performances coming up, that to have to access all of your supports after school can really be a challenge and can make the students have to kind of pick and choose and prioritize. So the hope is with that flex period being built in the day that we can minimize some of those challenges after school. There's still going to be some conflicts. There's no way around it. But I think one of the nice benefits of this too is that after school help isn't necessarily always going to be on a Tuesday, where maybe that's where traditionally there's a basketball game on Tuesdays. So that will rotate as the schedule cycles through. So those conflicts should be less and more avoidable. And then obviously the days where there aren't those flex blocks built in would be our traditional after school help, where kids would have those opportunities to stop in and see a teacher, make an appointment, whatever they need to do, whether it's guidance, whether it's, a math teacher, make up a quiz, whatever. So we're still going to retain some of those traditional practices, but I think we're really going to open up some great opportunities within the school day with that flex block. So we will still, again, from a teacher standpoint, we'll still keep kind of our traditional Fridays where those are sort of everyone go home and enjoy the weekend. And then we'll have our faculty and department meeting times as well, which will still be dedicated time. But based on what we've seen from other schools that have implemented this model and other schools that have implemented the Myflex Learning, the length of period seems to be a sweet spot, and that flex period really does serve the benefit that we hope it will for us as well. So.
I believe that's, yep. Thank you, Owen. So that's the schedule. So our plan as of now to sort of roll this out to the high school community, we're going to be sharing it with students very soon as they are in preparation of receiving their program of studies and selecting courses for the next school year. We're going to be sharing this with rising 9th grade families when we meet with them in early February. We'll also be presenting and doing more of a Q&A with those that might be interested during our January PTO meeting. And we'll also working on a sort of a screencastify video for families who can't attend any of those other venues. So again, it's something we're excited about. It's very different. I think, Jess, you mentioned earlier, change can be challenging at times. This is a change that we're excited about. It did reflect a lot of input from staff and students, and the idea of the students having a lot more independence and ownership and how they use their flex periods during the week was something that students commented on throughout the process as we were creating this. So that's what we have, and certainly welcome any questions you might have for us.
You're muted. Okay, I can go. Robert and Heather and Jeff, I thank you so much for this. When I first saw it in the packet, I was utterly confused. So thank you for the information. And as I was churning through things, you then answered the question. I am so thrilled with this schedule. There's so many things that I feel like this ticks off a lot of things that I mean, personally, our family has struggled with. I love the longer periods. I love the rotation. I especially love the flex time. And then Jeff, as you said, the accountability of the Flex Learning app, it's brilliant, really, because I know that I do have, God love him, but I have a child that really struggles with trying to structure his own time. And just there's an accountability factor there that I think it helps both the teacher in fostering a relationship with the student and then the student kind of growing more independent and gaining those executive functioning skills. I'm also really thrilled that the same advisor is going to stay with them for the 4 years. And really that's another connectedness piece that they'll have. And then the common planning time really cemented in there for the teachers is so important. And I'm glad that that's going to be a constant. And I'm assuming that that's common planning time by, I don't know if it's grade level or if it would just be by subject core
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Okay.
Yeah,
Which
a little bit of
leads me
both.
to my next question. The only thing that I think that would make this completely perfect would be if there was a possibility of some cross kind of planning between, say, the grade levels in terms of planning big tests, projects, exams, so that we can prevent them from all being lumped on one day, which I know that you probably hear about. I've heard people from town come to me to talk about, and hopefully this will allow people, the teachers specifically, to kind of know, like, oh, you're doing a big project that day. Okay, I'm going to shift mine to this day, so that, in terms of the kids planning, if we're going through all this process to try to kind of make their stress levels alleviated, that seems like a necessary step then to really kind of have like a side-by-side calendar of when the quizzes are going to happen, or big projects or something like that, so that we aren't overburdened. So I don't know if you guys have given any thought to that, or Heather's shaking her head. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we don't
Great.
have a time right now where everyone is off. Really, the only time we have is when we have professional days.
Right.
So, after school, in theory, nobody's necessarily teaching, but often teachers have kids. So there really isn't a time where everyone's off. And a few teachers might have the same period off at the same period, but it's not everybody. So it definitely opens up the potential for more coordination between teachers, between departments. And that's just something that we don't have right now.
I'm so thrilled. Thank you so much I'm sure this was a lot of work. So I wish we could start tomorrow. I wish a lot of things, but
Me too.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this looks really great. Very excited to see that, and it's going to be a huge improvement to the programming. So very excited to see it happening, and glad that the staff are on board with it. 'Cause, change is hard, especially high school staff and the schedule. I sent a picture of it to my wife because she's obviously a high school teacher. So and they do a similar schedule in Sharon. Well, in normal times they do a similar schedule, and it's going to be great. So that's awesome.
Anna Mae,
Thank you for the work.
Hallelujah. I'm just so excited right now. It's been a long time since we've had a lot of hope in our meetings. And then I think tonight, tonight, I think with this report and, more synchronous learning that the state is mandating, I think, we're on the right trajectory. And I just want to commend Heather and Robert and Perry Oasis and all the folks that worked on this. I was on
Jeff.
the SEL task force. Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, Jeff, yes, of course, Jeff. I was just thinking way back when, I remember 2 years ago when you guys came up with the survey that you gave to the teachers, and Heather was adamant to get 100% response, and she worked it hard. And I believe that this new schedule encompasses the spirit of what you got from that survey, that you really worked hard to listen to the teachers and even the students on the panel or on our SEL, group regarding the schedule. You listened to the students, and there were a couple of parents. So I commend you guys, thank you. Thank you very much. It seemed so daunting way back then. And then this is the end product. And it just goes to show change takes some time, but this is a beautiful project. And so, or end product. And I know there'll be more tweaks, but I thank you, I commend you. My husband works at Needham High School, and he loves that flex block, or that they call it X block over there, where, he does, like, this kid needs to come in, and he'll book a kid to come in, and it's just an extra safety net. And I think it really, it's good for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
It allows for some level of personalized differentiated learning as well that sometimes gets lost in the high school in the shorter periods, and the amount of time, they spend kind of churning through 7 classes a day. It can be.
One of the things that we liked about the advisory piece, it almost takes that advisory to another level, meaning that you, in theory, have the same advisor for 4 years. That advisor, that teacher is going to know the kids really well. And, you know, some students I know will be very efficient at scheduling their week. Some are going to need some help. And the more we know the students, the more support and the better advice, suggestions, ideas we can give for them to most benefit. That will most benefit them during this flex time. So, you know, that's when it really begins to kind of take that teacher, advisor, student relationship to the next level is when the adults in the building can really guide students to the types of supports they need and know them well enough to, and have that relationship developed enough to be able to work synchronously. So that's a big part of what, you know, the advisor flex period is hopefully gonna do for our kids.
Andrew, Leo, you spoke. Tim, anyone?
I don't really have any specific comments. I just think that, I mean,
You're like, I'm leaving, man.
no, I'm leaving. I'm kind of sad. But that's nice. Like, and also, I know someone mentioned earlier about why, I think it was Mr. Parga, about why students don't take study halls, and I think there was kind of this like pressure that, you know, if I don't fill that gap with like a, you know, honors writing seminar or like some class that's going to boost your GPA, then you're afraid that like something else might happen. College counselors are going to see your schedule and see a hole and see 0 credits to pass fail or whatever it is, and they're going to say, oh, well, this kid bumped it, and they're not going to. So that was kind of the fear, but building it in and forcing everyone to do it, not forcing, but, you know, kind of giving everyone that opportunity to have that time is definitely going to be nice.
I hear that, and I remember that concern being there last year and knowing that studies were probably really great in terms of helping kids alleviate their level of stress and kind of helping them kind of organize their day a little bit, but also knowing that kids felt like, well, how will I look in comparison? I very much remember that discussion. I do have 2 questions. Actually, one is, can you tell me a little bit about how the impact of the new schedule will impact special ed services, particularly learning center services, OT, PT, you know, which aren't as maybe as kind of throughout the entire student body at the high school level, but are still there. And that, can you tell me, are those thought to be put into flex times? Are kids like really kind of, where is that thought coming at this point? Kind of where would that fit in within this schedule?
It will be a class like it is now. Yeah, so there will be opportunities for additional during flex time, and that's something that we have to coordinate a little bit, but IEPs are going to have to be rewritten slightly to reflect the number of minutes that our periods are going to be next year compared to what they are now. But in terms of the services, they're not changing. If a student receives services during, say, period 2 right now, or B, we use the letters and numbers interchangeably, then in the new schedule, they will get those services during that B block, or wherever it happens to land.
And the other thing is and Jeff knows I'm going to ask this one. One of the things that, despite the fact that there's a pandemic and everything else and everything has changed so much, we have been talking about the kind of biology of sleep for a very long time. And this schedule, you know, starts our kids 10 minutes later, and I'm sure my kid would be really excited for even 10 more minutes. But as we move on, do we see that there's kind of I know there are a lot of things that have to fall into place to be able to kind of take advantage of the teenage sleep cycle. But do we see that there's a possibility at some point for shifting this schedule up, or so that kids are able to kind of take more advantage of the time that their brain is on? Because I think sometimes the first period is a lost wasteland.
Yeah,
You know?
so I mean, obviously the time that we start does not impact the schedule. So if we started
right.
half an hour later, then everything should shift in half an hour later. I will tell you that one of the things that we did look at, and you will find high schools that do this, is to, sorry, this thing is a little loose in my ear, is to make the flex available in a cycle during all 5 periods. So
Mhm.
some days it is period one, and some days it falls at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Definitely some advantages to that, and some of what you're alluding to, Jess. Some disadvantages to that. Perhaps it would be something that we would look at some point. We felt that building it sort of in the middle was a good way for us to kind of get this off the ground, to get
Mhm.
started, to really get a good sense of how the flex is going to feel. It's not something I'm entirely opposed to. It definitely opens up a whole host of other challenges
I know.
for us,
Always
and
does.
you know,
Yeah.
makes it really critical for students to make good choices and to take advantage of this time.
Yeah.
But I'm not opposed to looking at that at some point. And like I said, some schools do truly rotate it through 5 periods, in which there would be, in theory, a day in a cycle that would start later.
I just kind of
We'll
wanted
see.
to, I know that it hit before this year of, kind of putting out fires all over the place. It really was an area of concentration for a lot of people who study, adolescent circadian rhythms, and that it was a very big topic. And I just wanted to make sure that that was something that was still kind of within our expansion possibilities around SEL. So,
Yeah, I mean, a later start would just shift.
Yeah.
It wouldn't impact the schedule at all.
anyone else? Any other
Just one more thing from me is that the way the schedule is built, and if you're really focused on the details, D period is the same all day, all week long. And that's so that the music department can work district-wide without an impact to our music program, just
Okay.
for those people who are looking at the details. And then the other thing that happened in the schedule is that it was built so that people should be able to be at one school in the morning and one school in an afternoon without an impact. So that's why some of it's not a true waterfall pattern that I think some schools like, and it really mixes everything up. But that's the why, is it's really tailored for what our needs are in Medfield, with having as little impact district-wide as possible.
I was curious about that with the middle school schedule, and the fact that you were able to figure out how to make that happen is, I mean, you could also work out world peace at this point. I mean, I think you have the skill set. So thank you, because that's pretty amazing. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on that before I open it up to public input? No? Okay. If anybody has comments on the high school schedule, I know this is the first time, and if you are an elementary school student or parent, or a middle school parent, you are probably wondering what in the world just happened there. But if anybody has any comments on that, I'll give you about another 30 seconds or so.
And also, Jess, as I mentioned, we are going to do a presentation at an upcoming PTO meeting where we will answer questions as well. So there will be an opportunity there also.
Yeah, and I started working on a Google site today, because that's how I've started learning information. So I have a Google site that's set up with a lot of this presentation, but in smaller blocks of information, because rather than having it just be lengthy.
For those of us who are different learners.
I just thought it meets my needs. It might meet somebody else's too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this, and I appreciate you, waiting for us to kind of process through the first half of our meeting as well. I do appreciate that. I know it's a long one. And with that, we will move on to amending the fiscal year 22 budget calendar. If Dr. Morrison would like to move on to that.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you guys coming tonight.
So much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. So we had set our calendar earlier in the budget season, and as we looked at our calendar and what kind of the schedule is for January, we typically always have our public hearing at the end of the month, the last either Monday or Thursday of the month. So we wanted to ask you to revote the budget calendar if you'd like to change that public hearing, which is going to be a little bit different this year. So when we do our posting for the public hearing, we actually have to put the Zoom link and the password on the actual ad in the paper, which is something we've never had to do before because we've always done these in person. So it's going to look a little bit different. We have it all ready to go. If you so choose to change the date this evening, it will go in the local papers as required. I know that each year it always comes up as an issue on Facebook about that we didn't post it correctly and it has to be posted here, there, and everywhere. The requirement is that it has to be posted in a newspaper in the town that is regularly accessed by individuals that live there. So we do that every year. We do it correctly every year. So I just want to kind of get ahead of that because I'm sure that's coming soon. So that's the ad's ready to go if you folks are able to or willing to move the date and revote that calendar.
This would also move the regular school committee meeting to that 28th.
That's correct.
So you would have both the budget hearing at 7 p.m. and then the regular school committee meeting would follow.
Correct.
Right. So just to make sure that everybody is aware of that.
So Justin, does that mean that this agenda, which says next meeting, January 21st, would then be
amended? Yes. Or that the agenda, I mean, we can't, I looked at that a little funny too, because I know that we had kind of surveyed whether that was possible for us to be able to do, but we would then move that.
But it wasn't official yet, so it can't be on the agenda.
Exactly. And in fact, we may have another meeting in between that. So, all right. So, unless anybody has any comment about that, I think it's a fairly easy lift.
Garlic's meeting night as well.
I know that we're going to have to talk to Denise and make her change her night because ours seems to be pretty steady over
it's 2 nights, two years in a row that's happened. So
yeah.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to amend the fiscal year 22 budget calendar to move the date of the public budget hearing to January 28th, 2021 at 7 p.m.?
So moved.
Anna Mae and Leo seconds. I will do a roll call now. Leo Brem.
Aye.
And Tim Knight. Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Hey, sorry.
And Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley. Aye. The motion passes. The budget hearing will be on January 28th at 7 p.m. Okay, on to Dr. Marsden. If you could review the NASDAQ prediction, whatever those are, predictions.
Projections.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Projections.
That's all right. So as you know, every time, thank you.
You guys have been here for the same 4 hours that I've been here, right?
Every year around this time is when we typically get our enrollment projections from NASDAQ. So we submit after October 1, we submit our October 1 enrollment, which, as you know, is a key date in Massachusetts. So that October 1 enrollment really drives the Chapter 70 money that the states get now, that the districts get. One of the things that we're working on with our association, I know your association is doing the same, is trying to hold districts harmless because there's been a decrease. I think I heard today of 4% in school districts in the state in enrollment. And there's many reasons for it, but all of them tied to COVID-19 and models that districts are in. So we're hoping that we're held harmless. We do have some changes and differences in our enrollment as well for this year. So the projection, NASDAQ does this for, I think, over 400 districts within New England. Medfield's always used NASDAQ. I use NASDAQ in my former district and my district before that. So it's pretty much the gold standard around here for what we do for projected enrollment. I guess I just want to turn your attention to the projected enrollments for the 2021-2022 school year, particularly looking at our kindergarten projection. So as I said earlier this evening, we said that we have 164 kids currently in our kindergarten program. You'll see that next year, the projection, and this is based on live births, by the way. This isn't a projection of kids that may move in. It's really kids that are already living here according to the census and the data that we submit to them. They're projecting that we'll have 233 students in full day kindergarten next year. So to be clear, they did project a lot higher last year, what we're going to have in kindergarten, and that didn't come through. We have 10 students in kindergarten for this year that are homeschooled. 18 students, I said earlier, held back by parents. And district-wide, we have 42 students district-wide, K to 12, that are new to private school this year, which is a little bit higher than we normally have. Typically, we see that drop off around 7th, 8th, or 9th grade, where kids typically go to private school. But I think, based on our model, there are some folks that wanted to pull their kids out and get them in a different model, so that the private school went up a little bit higher this year. So putting
Beth, can I ask a quick
Yep.
clarification question?
Sure.
So we had 18 kids who were held this year. So those 18 could ostensibly be added to this 233.
They could be.
Okay. And you said full day K, or are these just simply kindergarten age kids?
Kindergarten age kids.
Okay, thank you.
So, typically we have that, as I said earlier, we typically have between 14 and 21 or so that are held back each year. I think one year that I've been here, we've had as high as 24. So that's essentially a whole class.
That was that famous grade. Yeah.
So I think that's a whole classroom of kids that are held back. And so they will impact the projections as well. So I just, one of the things that we're looking at is the impact this will have, number one, on our budget, and number two, our ability to provide full day kindergarten for all that want it next year. So we're looking back into that issue we've had a few years ago, that we had to do a lottery or something to make sure that everyone was in full day kindergarten. To be clear, though, our data that we have with our outreach and our numbers, we don't have the 233. So
Okay.
ours are much lower. They're hovering around the 190 range or so, which is what we found in the last couple of years. So the issue that we've had with NSDEC, and the issue that we've had when we went to MSBA, is when they do this analysis, they look at the birth to kindergarten ratio. And I know that NSDEC told me this a few years ago, that we have one of the highest birth to kindergarten, which means that kids are born in another town and families move in prior to the child attending kindergarten. So that ratio that we have here. It was Hopkinton, Sudbury, and Medfield were the three top for many, many years. That has continued. When we had our meeting a few years ago, when it was now, our enrollment certification meeting with MSBA, it seems like forever ago, but it was probably 2 years ago. When we walked into the room, they said, we have never seen a birth to kindergarten ratio this high in our analysis. So, that means that as we see with real estate around here, it's pretty robust in terms of families moving in, and they're doing it after their child is born. So that becomes a difficult predictor on how many kids we're actually going to have that come into kindergarten. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because we've seen these projections now from both MSBA and NSDEC over the last 3 years of this large bubble of kids coming through, which really was the reason behind the school that we're building, hopefully at the Hvac site, the new Dale Street School, was going to be that large because of the projections and the kids that are here. So if you look at that, and I'm looking at the one that says on the top, Medfield, Mass projected enrollment. Unfortunately, there's no pagination here. So I think it's the 4th page.
Yeah.
You'll see that in that graph, the students that are on top in white are already in the district, so they're already here. The blue students, that light blue, those are students based on births that are already living in town. They're already here and they've already been born. The dark blue is based on the estimation of births and projection of births in the town. So, those obviously are less reliable, the dark blue, but that light blue, based on kids that are already here.
That's still not small.
It's not small. I mean, you look at, 2029, 30 in 8th grade, and they have 274 kids there. So there's definitely some growth. If you look at the projections over the next 10 years, there's a 19.5% growth, which is a steady almost 2% each year. We'll see 2.2 projected next year, a little bit of a dive in 2022, 23, but then a steady increase of 2% of students coming in each year after that. So, this is really helpful for us in our planning, but I just wanted you to be aware that as we go through this process of our budget, and we do our presentation on the 28th, we may be adding additional teachers or looking at options around full day kindergarten for that presentation. So I just want to kind of put that out there, but happy to answer any questions on here. It gives you some really good information, but it's similar to what we get each year in terms of projections from NASDAQ.
Anybody have any thoughts, questions? Anyone? Okay.
So if we do have to, based on what our numbers are, and I'm working with Missy on that, we'll put this projection and some of this data into our presentation on the 28th if there's going to be a need for additional staffing and teachers in that regard. So we'll back it up with that.
Sounds like you might need to keep the gymnasium as classrooms.
Yeah, we may need to do that.
I was saying the same thing. I mean, around the lines of that creativity near term too. Do we have the space? 233 is huge.
Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about. We were looking at that 3-4-5 model for the new school and having moving first grade over to Hvac and then having that pre-KK building. That was kind of the thought, being able to house all these kids in those buildings and be able to expand the programs that we currently have at Memorial. And that would give us the room to do that. But I know we obviously couldn't do that based on the cost. But we may look at, I know Leo, you and I have talked about modulars at 1.2. We may have to look at that if this becomes a trend in the 233 holds true. That might be something we
huge bubble.
Yep.
That's a huge bubble.
I end up having Medfield Acres out there in the back 40 at Wheelock.
Yeah,
Careful.
that could happen.
Okay. Do I have any public comment on any of that? No, because everybody is off watching Netflix because they're exhausted and they want to go home. I get it. Nothing? No. Okay. So let's move on to scholarship approval, which is always a really nice part of our meeting, both
It is,
fast
yes.
and proud.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So these are our students that have graduated last year from Medfield High School. And as part of their scholarship requirements that they got last year, they have to submit their first semester grades, and then a vote by you releases that money because it's held with the town. So I would ask that you approve to release the funds for the Madeline L. Grant Scholarship in the amount of $3,000 to Caroline Nealon, and to release $3,500 for the Jean McCormick Scholarship to Catherine Lapham, both 2020 graduates. So really proud of what they've done after leaving Medfield, and just happy to give them this scholarship money that they've earned. So congratulations.
So moved.
Not only so moved, but I think that it's and I know you like less is more, but I do not want to underemphasize how amazing the transcripts were that came through. I'm just so impressed, and it is clear that they are very much worthy of these scholarships. So may I then take a roll call vote? Leo Brem.
Aye.
And Tim Knight.
Aye.
Megan Glenn. Megan, don't slow us down.
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea-Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And then Dr. Marsden, other items since posting on January 5th, 2021.
I have none, Madam Chair.
Okay. I think, what about the MCAS? We did have some news about MCAS, which I think we'll probably follow up on our next meeting.
Sure. I mean, a quick overview. They're going to, the DESE has let us know, and the commissioner told us at our meeting today, they're going to reduce the amount of time required for students grades 3 through 8 with the MCAS. And they are looking at essentially what he told us today was spending half the time with the MCAS test, which is really good news for our kids and for us in terms of our instructional time, because that takes up a lot of instructional time, as we know, and that's precious. So that, and it is going to be used for diagnostic purposes. The state really wants to see what the impact of the spring and this year has been in order to formulate what the plans will be, going forward for the state education system. So that's going to be happening. There's going to be more information coming out. Also, they have helped out the seniors with their competency determination. If students have not passed their competency determination tests their sophomore year, junior year, et cetera, they're going to be getting, and this isn't official yet because it still has to be approved by the board, but there's a recommendation by the commissioner to allow those students to use a course that they're currently in both mathematics and language arts, and use those grades in the course to allow them to get their diploma. So that's a change that has not been done in a long, long time. And I believe the board will approve that, but that's going to be a recommendation at the January board meeting for seniors. So that's it on MCAS, and we can certainly have more information on that in future meetings once that's all finalized from the state and we get the information officially.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's move on to old business now with a fiscal year 22 budget update. Again, Dr. Marsden or Michael?
So we've been continuing to work on our budget based on that initial budget presentation that we had at our last meeting prior to break. We're still under the 4%. And as we said in our presentation, that it's really tied to personnel, like most school district budgets are. And it's not really, it's not adding anyone, it's not adding any programs. It's essentially a level service budget, same people, same programs. And that's what we've been working on, try to refine that. Michael, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but we'll be ready on the 28th with our full proposal and recommendation for the FY22 budget.
Jeff, the only thing I would add was that we had to add in
right,
the technology that was taken on, put into capital, now we're adding it back into the operational budget.
Thank you, Michael. If you remember at the warrant committee meeting right before break, we talked about that because last year we were told we needed to put some technology into capital, which we had never done before. We put that into capital, and we did it again this year because we were told last year to do that, and now we're being asked to remove that. So we just need to get clarification, have a conversation with capital and the warrant committee to make sure everyone's on the same page, because it's a significant amount of money to take out and put back in and take out and put back in. So we want to make sure that we have it straight and the guidelines that we have from the town are accurate. So we want to make sure we have that conversation with both the warrant committee and the town.
It's certainly good to get clarification on. Okay.
I just have one more.
Oh, please.
Question. In the last, I think it was the last meeting when you presented the first round of the budget to us, we had discussed you putting in another adjustment counselor. Is that going to?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
That is there.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do I have any public comment on that? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. It seems like people can raise their hand pretty quickly. Anybody have a Jeopardy song or anything that you'd like to sing? All right. I'm going to say it's reasonable that people will give us their public comment on the 28th. So to move on to the mascot task force update, which is me. We sent out an invitation for people to apply to the mascot task force to kind of understand what the Medfield High mascot will be going forward. And we do visualize that as a mascot and an identification for the entire school, not simply athletics. Eric Ornberg and Brian Gavin and I have at this point been working on this together. And I have to say, it's really been a pleasure. They really have a really great understanding of kind of what this decision means for the department and the district, and how we bring ourselves together as a full community and not simply kind of just on our uniforms as we go out on athletic competitions. So the due date for that is January 8th, which is tomorrow. We've had a lot of applications, and I think we have a really nice balance of people. Like we said, we want this to be a conversation in which people are able to listen to each other and have an informed debate and discussion about the meaning of this representation for our district going forward. And that is all I'm going to say about that, unless, of course, anybody out there would like to join the task force, and then please, I urge you to reach out to me. All right. And we're trying to also bring people in from the community, alumni, otherwise. Public comment?
Quick question.
Or anime comment?
Yeah, so high school students have been asked. Are you asking like 8th graders or?
Yes, we actually, Brian Gavigan sent out a invitation to all Blakers, and we did get several, and not even just 8th graders, but 7th graders. Yeah, I mean, we
5th graders.
What?
Any K5s, 5th graders? They're really good at mascots.
They are very good at mascots, and actually their input will be asked for in the future. So, and we are trying to reach out to the elementary ages, teachers and parents as well, to make sure that we get that input, because these are the kids who are going to have to live with this mascot much longer than you know, the high school kids will.
So, and Jess, can you clarify, because I saw the original letter, and that original letter, it didn't make it clear that you're also asking students to join. So did that come separately, like through the schools?
So students received invitations through the school as well. And actually, I'd say about 50% of our membership at this point is high school students on all sides of the debate. So they got the message. I mean, but we also did send it out to parents as well. And we've been recruiting kind of throughout the community, not one side or the other, just asking people to, if they're invested, we'd like to hear from them. So, okay. I'm going to assume there's no public comment on that update, but if there is, speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Dale Street project. If Anna Mae and Tim, you want to give us an update on what's going on there, or Jeff, anyone?
Yeah, sure. I'll start off. So we have the Wheelock Neighborhood Traffic Questionnaire that is out and about. And in theory, that was going to close tomorrow, January 8th at noon. But because of the holidays and just the preoccupations this week of just stuff and chaos, and we thought it would be prudent to leave the questionnaire open until Monday at noon. And we're going to have a public forum with the analysis of that survey and traffic on Monday, February the 1st.
Okay.
Leo, do you want to mention the joint meeting we're having on the 3rd?
Yeah, so we have a joint meeting coming up with the selectmen, and is it just the selectmen? It's to review, we've got a meeting coming up around the sustainable energy review. And as well, we're engaging with MSBA on the model school program as well, because there's been a interest from the selectmen to review the possibility of using the model school program, which could possibly save money, you know, in the process. But we will keep everyone posted on that for sure.
So we just talked about it, Jess. I know you look cryptic, like, wait a minute.
Only because
So,
I couldn't figure out what kind of animal was behind Leo's shoulder.
It's a cat. A cat that shows up in all of my.
So that was I was like, all right. So yes, so I think Mike Freeland will reach out to you February 3rd. They're looking for a joint meeting to just review the feedback from MSBA.
Okay.
And model school.
Leo, I'm more just curious, the model school, I mean, everyone loves the idea of saving money. Why is it normal that it would come up now as opposed to earlier?
I'll mute myself on that one.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
That's one of those mouth moments.
So the model school program was an old program from MSBA that still exists. Hasn't been taken advantage of very much. What it does is it allows you to have like a set, it's supposed to save money by having a set amount of predictive costs to construction. The issue is it's very limited in scope, and it didn't end up saving a lot of money over time. So they actually do not push it as much anymore. And essentially what it was is you could just pick from a catalog, and then supposedly there would be these builders who know exactly how to build the school. But they don't push it anymore, but it is something we're exploring simply to see if there's any possibility of cost savings and viability that align with our needs with any of the model schools. We are following the lead of the Standing Building Committee, and obviously Mike Quinlan is extremely well versed in this space. I personally have not worked on a project with the model school program, but like Ashland High School happens to be the high school model school. And then obviously we're building elementary school, so we would find one to review. But a building is a building, and they all take steel and they all have labor. And so the square footage is still square footage. So the reality is that they found that they weren't actually saving money through the model, and it was forcing school districts to kind of use these cookie cutter schools. Not that they were terrible looking schools, but they were just cookie cutter. And so we would have to find one and position it, just like if you had gotten a pre-built prefab building, you would have to fit it on our site accordingly. Whereas our building today, the designs you've seen so far have been crafted around our site. So but we're exploring
In
all
our
opportunities.
educational plan.
Yeah, in our educational plan, right. And that's true too. Those model schools have not been updated for the future. They are well over 15 years old at this point. And so now, obviously they haven't been updated for that purpose. So, but we are exploring all avenues, to be cost effective as a committee and as a group. So MSBA has welcomed the opportunity for us to do it. They said we're totally, could do it if we wanted to. So we are exploring that option. However, we are also still exploring with Arrow Street as well. So.
Yeah, just to be clear, if we were in the model school program and we go in that direction, we'd have to re-interview architects all over again. So we spent the last couple of years working with Arrow Street, and they designed our building around our education plan. And if we go in the direction of the model school, then we have to, I assume Arrow Street would apply, but excuse me, we'd have to go through that process again. So it will slow us down again. We've done 3 different stops to this project because of COVID and in trying to engage more folks and all of that. We've done all that work, but this would put us back again. So, I think it's doing our due diligence and making sure that if we can save money, we will. But there's a reason why that not many elementary schools in the past 10 years have been built this way. I have to say the model school high schools are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, Franklin High School, Norwood High School, Natick High School, the original Whitman Hanson are just incredible buildings. I've been in all of them, and they're really fabulous. I have been in one model elementary school, and it's not very impressive. So we'll see how it goes.
Can I ask a pretty stupid question?
There's no such thing as stupid.
No such thing.
Clearly, the fact that we've hired Arrow Street and we've been working with them for years, why this is the selectmen's?
This is Gus Murby's request.
I just wanted that one to be said out loud. Thank you.
I see the shock on all your faces. It's fine.
Okay. Well,
Build versus buy, right? You buy and then you have to retrofit. Spend
all right.
more than pay.
Right.
Yes, I know. And then we also do have a time with the MSBA, an appointment in January 20th?
January 20th, yes. Yes, that's just a conference call just to go over, what the PSR facilities assessment is, and then to talk a little bit about model school with us as well.
Okay. So lacking public comment on that, which I'm open to, but don't think is going to happen. But might. I'm going to ask you, Dr. Morrison, to begin donations. Move on to donations.
Thank you. We just have one donation I'd ask you to approve. We really want to thank Leaders Environmental in town. They've always been a big supporter of our district, and each year they provide us with a donation. So I ask that you accept the $200 donation from Leaders Environmental to the Medfield School Department.
All right.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. I'll give Anna Mae that one. So roll call vote. Leo Brem.
Aye.
And Tim Knight.
Aye.
And Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke,
Aye.
and Jessica Riley, aye, because I would never turn down $200 or any found money this year, certainly. I'm joking. Okay, so informational items.
Madam Chair, I only have one. As you remember, it feels like a long time ago, it was in beginning of FY 21, I guess, when the Student Opportunity Act was passed, and there was going to be additional monies presented to school districts based on their formula. That didn't take place based on the pandemic and everything that happened. And there's a Student Opportunity Act plan that districts had to do that has been pushed out, and now the final due date is January 15th. So the commissioner said to us today, even though that doesn't look like they're going to get any of this money by statute, please make sure you submit one. So Mary Brule and I have been working on the SOA plan that really focuses on special education and English learners. So we really want to focus on two projects that we have. If you remember too, the allocation of funds was around $60,000 for us when it first came out. Other districts are getting in the millions. Again, small potatoes for us in terms of the overall budget. But we want to focus our efforts in special education English learners. So the two projects that we want to do is a continuation of the Dale Street co-teaching model, which we've had it's been very successful for our kids. And we've been getting good feedback from parents, and we just sent out another survey to get additional feedback from parents as well. And then we started something new last year where we did a boot camp over the summer for students that we really thought needed additional support after being remote for X amount of months. And we felt that went extremely well. We want to expand that and include our English learner students in that for next year. So those are two that we feel are very valuable projects for the district that fall under the subgroup and the spirit of the Student Opportunity Act. So we're putting that plan together, and I would ask that you host a meeting next week where we have just this on the agenda, and at least for open session, and we could do a short presentation, and then it's recommended that the school committee approves it. But I think it's a smart thing to do because it's financially, even though we won't probably see the money. The commissioner asked us to make sure that we do that. So I would ask you to consider a meeting next week, and we could do that so anytime that works for the five of you, and we'll move forward with our plan.
Okay, so I did do a survey reply only to me about times, and I think, unfortunately, I didn't write it down, but I think that was it Tuesday at 5 p.m. that we said would work?
Yeah.
So we would do the public regular session at 5 p.m. and then immediately after that go into executive session and not return. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So that's not something we need to vote on, right? I believe.
We'll post that tomorrow.
Okay, great. So we will post that tomorrow to do the presentation and vote on the Student Opportunities Act plan, so it can be submitted on the 15th. So indeed, that changes my next meeting date, but okay.
So you said, sorry, the 12th at 5? Right? 12th at 5?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
12th at 5, and we will post that again tomorrow. Okay, any other thoughts about that before we move on to future agenda items, which we are now trying to put kind of specific months and dates on so that people kind of predict when they're about to come up. We have future agenda items as social emotional learning and a social emotional task force report by Dr. David Worthley on the meeting on February 11th. The standards-based report card feedback, the long-awaited report on that by Dr. Christine Powers on March 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And then student feedback kind of discussion or presentation, which Anna Mae will kind of construct, and we'll talk about either for February 11th or March 11th, depending on where our agenda looks like it's going at that point. We only have one meeting in February and one in March at this point, as far as has been scheduled. So we want to make sure that they don't get too packed and we can kind of get through the district's business as well. So we will work on that. So any other items from there? Are we good? Okay. So given that, do I hear, oh wait, the next meeting is on January 12th at 5 p.m. That will be a brief public meeting. And then January 28th for the public hearing regarding the fiscal year 22 budget. And that will be at 7 p.m. on the 28th. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Leo, where are you?
So moved.
Okay, Anna Mae.
Second.
Leo calls second. And a roll call vote. Leo Brem
Aye.
and Tim Knight.
All right.
Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley. It has been lovely to spend the last 4 hours and 28 minutes with all of you, and I look forward to doing it again very soon. Thank you. And thank you all, 25 of you that actually stuck it all the way to the end. Nice work. Thank you. And thank you to our presentant.